The night I met the little boy who changed my life, I was standing over my daughter's grave, wishing I had died instead of her. 3 months after we buried Sandra, I could barely breathe in that cemetery. But I kept going back anyway, like a punishment I thought I deserved. So when I heard a child sobbing in the dark at my daughter's headstone, of all places, I honestly thought grief had finally broken my mind, until I saw him. My name is Jonathan Cole, and this is the story of how I found a stranger crying over my daughter. How I learned she died, trying to save him. How I went to war with a child trafficking ring I didn't even know existed, and how I ended up raising the son of the man who had her killed. If it were you, what would you have done? Walked away, called the cops, or dragged that kid out of the graveyard and refused to let go? That night was one of those damp, misty nights where the air feels heavy and the fog hangs low over the grass, wrapping itself around headstones like a bad dream. I was standing in front of Sandra's grave, the marble still so white, it looked wrong, like it hadn't earned the weathering yet. I laid fresh roses down, traced her name with my thumb, and whispered, "Hey, sweetheart, Dad's here, trying to pretend she could hear me." My voice cracked halfway through like it always did. Then I heard it. This thin, broken sound somewhere to my left. A child's crying, not the controlled sniffles you hear at funerals, but full-body helpless sobbing. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, that my brain was just mixing memories with the wind. You know how it is when you're exhausted from grief. But then it came again closer this time, cutting through the fog, and every instinct in me lit up. I walked toward it, weaving between the grave's shoes, sinking into soft ground. When I rounded one of the bigger stones and saw who was there, I froze. A small boy, maybe 6, was kneeling right in front of Sandra's grave, his arms wrapped around himself, his forehead nearly touching the ground. He was crying so hard, his whole body shook. His jacket was too big, his shoes looked like they were about to fall apart, and he was clutching something tight against his chest, like it was the last thing he owned in the world. He wasn't just crying at some random grave. He was crying at my daughter's. "Hey," I said softly, because I didn't want to scare him. "Are you okay?" He flinched like I'd hit him, his head snapping up, eyes wide with pure terror. He stumbled backward on his hands, scrambling away from me, but refusing to let go of whatever he was holding. "Please," he whispered, voice shaking. I just wanted to see her, see who I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Do you mean Sandra?" The boy stared at the headstone, then at me. "She was my friend," he said, and something in his voice got me right in the chest. She was everything to me. That hit harder than I want to admit. My daughter had been everything to me, but I had never, not once, heard her mention this boy. "What's your name?" I managed. "Gabriel," he said, barely audible. "Gabriel." I repeated, trying to connect dots that didn't exist in my head. "Where are your parents?" His face crumpled like paper. "I don't have any," he said. "They left me." The way he said it, flat like a fact he'd repeated until it stopped hurting, made something twist in my gut. Before I could say anything else, thunder rumbled overhead, and the drizzle turned into real rain. His hair started sticking to his forehead, his jacket soaking through, but he didn't move. I noticed then what he'd been clutching. "What are you holding?" I asked. He hesitated, then slowly held it out to me. His hands were shaking. I took the crumpled photograph from him, and the second I saw it, my blood turned to ice. It was a picture of 2 people. My daughter Sandra, smiling like the sun, kneeling slightly, with her arm around this same little boy Gabriel, who was looking up at her like she was the only safe person on earth. At the bottom corner was a date, June 15th last year. I had never seen that photo in my life. "Where did you get this?" I whispered. "Sandra gave it to me." Gabriel said softly. She said it was proof that I mattered that someone saw me. For a second, I literally forgot how to breathe. All this time, I thought I knew my daughter, what she was doing, who she was seeing, what her days looked like. But apparently, she had this whole secret life of kindness and risk that I knew nothing about. She'd been out there, giving hope to a kid the world had thrown away, while I was sitting in boardrooms, arguing about numbers. You know what I mean? That kind of realization doesn't just sting, it burns. Then he said the sentence that changed everything for me. She was coming to meet me. Gabriel cried, eyes filling again the day she died. She was bringing me food. And that's when the accident happened. It's my fault. He crumpled his small body, folding in on itself, as sobs tore out of him. I just stood there, holding that impossible photo, staring at my daughter's smiling face next to this boy's, and replaying the story I'd been told about her death. Late rain, drunk driver tragedy, while a new version of reality pushed its way in. She hadn't just been driving in the rain. She'd been on her way to feed a child. This child. Without really deciding to, I knelt down and pulled Gabriel into my arms. He tensed up like he expected to be hit, then suddenly clung to me with this desperate strength, like I was the last rope keeping him from falling into a pit. It wasn't your fault, I said. And for once in my life, I didn't care if my voice shook. You hear me, Gabriel? It was not your fault. He sniffled, pulled back a little, wiping at his eyes with the back of his hand. I have to go, he murmured, glancing at the sky. The shelter closes at 9. If I don't get there, I have to sleep outside, and they said it's going to be really cold tonight. That sentence just broke me. This kid is kneeling at my daughter's grave, holding a photo she gave him, telling me she was his everything, believing her death is his fault, and his biggest concern is making it back to a shelter before they lock the doors so he doesn't freeze on the street. If it were, you have let him just walk away, Gabriel. I said a lot more firmly this time. You're coming home with me. He looked at me like I'd spoken Martian. What? You're coming to my house tonight, I told him. You'll have a warm bed and hot food, and we'll figure this out in the morning. He swallowed hard. Why would you do that? Because Sandra loved you, I said. And that's enough for me. Tears spilled down his cheeks again. But this time, they weren't just grief. There was something like hope in there, too. He slid his small hand into mine, gripping it tight, and we walked through the rain toward my car. I opened the door of my Mercedes, helped him climb in carefully, and as I sat in the driver's seat, my phone buzzed. I glanced down. Unknown number. One line. Stop asking questions about the boy, or you'll lose more than you already have. Pattern interrupt. Right there. I looked up, heart pounding, scanning the darkness. Just missed rows of headstones, my own headlights. But suddenly, I felt like I had a target painted on my back. I deleted the message, shoved the phone in my pocket, and pulled away from the graveyard. Gabriel was quiet in the passenger seat, one hand still curled around that photo, staring out the window as Sandra's grave disappeared behind us. In the rearview mirror, I caught sight of headlights in the distance. At first, I thought nothing of it, just another car leaving. But as we drove, the same set of lights stayed right behind us, never passing, never falling far back. Black car, low hard to see through the rain. 10 minutes. That car stayed glued to my rear bumper. Then, as I turned toward the road that led to my neighborhood, it suddenly veered off down a side street and disappeared. It should have made me feel better. It didn't. Someone had been watching us. On the way home, I forced myself to ask Gabriel questions, trying to keep my tone calm so I wouldn't scare him. Tell me about Sandra, I said. How did you meet her? He kept his eyes on the glass. She found me behind the grocery store about 6 months before she died, he said. I was sleeping near the dumpsters. She gave me a sandwich and asked if I was okay. Nobody ever asked me that before. 6 months. 6 months my daughter had been out there feeding and protecting a kid I didn't even know existed. And after that, I asked. She came every week, he said quietly, sometimes twice. She brought me food and clothes and books. She said I deserved better, that she was going to help me. She said she wanted to tell her dad about me, but she was scared. Scared of what I asked, though deep down I already knew. That you wouldn't want me, he whispered. That you'd think I was just another problem. Those words hit like a sledgehammer. In one sentence, my daughter handed me my own reflection. A man so obsessed with order and success that his own kid believed he'd see a starving child as a problem, not a person. Do you think that's fair? Because as much as I wanted to protest, I also knew there had been times in my life when she wasn't wrong. We reached my estate. The iron gates swung open, the lights from the house cutting through the rain. To me, that place had always been a symbol of how far I'd climbed. The fountain, the trimmed hedges, the polished stone. To Gabriel, it might as well have been a palace from a storybook. You live here, he breathed. Yeah, I said quietly. It's like a castle, he whispered, practically pressing his face against the window. For the first time, I saw my own house through someone else's eyes, and it didn't look like success anymore. It looked like excess. While kids like Gabriel slept in alleys, I had guest rooms I didn't even walk into for months at a time. We got inside dripping water onto marble floors, and a rug that probably cost more than everything Gabriel had ever owned combined. He froze just past the doorway, afraid to move, like if he took one wrong step, someone would shout at him. It's okay, I told him gently. Come on, let's get you warm. I took him upstairs to a guest room. Big bed, flat screen TV, private bathroom, with a shower that probably had better water pressure than most apartments. There are towels in the bathroom, I said. Take a hot shower. I'll find you some clothes. He nodded, but he didn't move, just stared at the bed. Gabriel, I asked. You all right? He swallowed. I've never slept in a real bed before, he whispered. Yeah. That one hurt. Well, I said, trying to keep my voice steady tonight. You'll sleep in that one. Take your time. I'll be downstairs if you need anything. I left him there, went to my office, shut the door, and then I just sat down and let myself fall apart for a minute. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my daughter, who I was as a father, had been flipped upside down in a matter of hours. Then my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. We're watching. Send the boy away or face the consequences. Grief turned to anger. Somebody out there thought they could threaten a child in my house, in my daughter's house, and I would just fold. That might have been true a year ago. It wasn't true anymore. I called my head of security. Samson told him to get to the house with 2 of his best men and bring weapons. Then I opened my laptop and started using the only real power I'd spent years building: money and connections. Private investigators, former cops, lawyers, who owed me favors. I put them all to work on one thing: finding out who Gabriel was and why he made dangerous people nervous. I need everything you can find on a boy named Gabriel, I said. No last name, about 6, abandoned by his parents, living on the streets. Start with shelters, hospitals, old records, whatever you can get. And I want movement tonight, not next week. When they hesitated, I said the magic word, Johnny is not a problem. Then I pulled up something I'd avoided really digging into because it hurt too much. Sandra's phone records from the months before her death. I had checked them once briefly, looking for a last call she might have tried to make to me. There hadn't been one, so I closed the file and shoved that guilt deep down, where I kept all my other failures. This time, I looked closer. That's when I saw it. A number she'd called over and over during those last 6 months, always short calls. Just a few minutes, sometimes only seconds. The last call to that number had been made about an hour before the crash that killed her. I dialed. It rang 3 times. Then a woman picked up, Her voice was wary cold. "Who is this?" "My name is Jonathan Cole," I said. "My daughter Sandra used this number a lot. She died 3 months ago. I just found a boy named Gabriel at her grave, and someone is threatening me because of him. If you know anything." "Gabriel." She cut in, her whole tone changing suddenly sharp and urgent. "You found Gabriel?" "Yes," I said, looking toward the ceiling like I could see past the floors to the room where he was. "He's here with me now." "Who are you?" "Listen to me very carefully," she said. "Get that boy out of your house. Now. Tonight. They will come for him." "Who?" I asked. But my heart already knew. "The people who killed your daughter," she said quietly. Then she hung up, and just like that, the story shifted again. It wasn't just a tragic accident anymore. Someone might have had Sandra killed. Before I could even fully absorb that, I heard glass shatter in the next room. I grabbed the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, a kitchen knife, and ran toward the sound. The big bay window in the living room was broken, rain blowing and curtains flapping like they were trying to escape. On the floor was a brick with a note tied around it. I picked it up. "Give us the boy or everyone you love dies." Behind me, Gabriel screamed. I turned. The back door was open. A man in black stood there, ski mask covering his face, gun pointed straight at us. "Step away from the boy," he said, voice cold, like he'd rehearsed those exact words. I didn't even think. I stepped in front of Gabriel, knife in my hand, like that meant anything against a gun. "Who are you?" I demanded. "What do you want from him?" "The boy doesn't belong to you," he said. "He belongs to us." Us, who I pushed even as I felt Gabriel's little hands clutching at my shirt from behind, shaking. "That's not your concern," the man said. The gun didn't waver. "Last chance. Move. Don't let him take me." Gabriel sobbed, his voice breaking in a way that will haunt me until I die. "Please don't let him take me." Time slowed down. I saw the man's finger tighten on the trigger. I knew I couldn't reach him before he fired. I knew I might be about to die in front of a kid who'd already watched too many horrible things happen. And then the front door exploded open. "Police, drop your weapon." Multiple voices, heavy footsteps, the crackle of radios. The man in the ski mask spun around toward the new threat. Gunshots thundered in the room, loud and chaotic. I grabbed Gabriel and threw us both to the floor behind the couch, shielding his body with mine, feeling glass and plaster rain down around us. Someone was shouting, someone else was screaming, and then just like that, it was over. The masked man was gone, slipped out through the back in the chaos. The police swarmed the house, checking every corner, while Gabriel shook so hard his teeth chattered. When an officer finally knelt beside us and asked if we were okay, I realized I hadn't taken a full breath in at least a minute. "How did you even know to come?" I asked. "Anonymous tip," he said. "Someone called and said there was an intruder at this address. The woman on the phone, whoever she was, had just saved our lives. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind." That night turned into the beginning of a war. I did not know how to fight, but I refused to walk away from. While my house turned into a crime scene, and then a fortress while Samson's men set up more cameras and stronger locks, I sat in my office and watched my phone light up, with the results of the search I'd ordered on Gabriel. One message made my heart stop. "Found something. The boy's real name is Gabriel Morrison. Father Samson Morrison. Currently wanted by the FBI for child trafficking and murder. Operation shut down 8 months ago. He escaped. Still at large." I stared at those words for a long time. Child trafficking. Murder. And suddenly it all snapped into focus. The threats, the masked man. The woman's warning, the fact that Sandra had been sneaking around with a homeless child for months and then died in a random accident. Later, after I'd gotten Gabriel to eat something and finally fall asleep in a bed that looked like it might swallow him, I dug deeper into Sandra's old laptop. Hidden inside a folder that was hidden inside another folder was a collection of documents, photos, and audio files. Evidence. She'd been gathering evidence. And one more file, a video. It was dated 2 weeks before she died. I clicked play. Sandra appeared on the screen, sitting on her bed, in a hoodie, hair pulled back, eyes red-rimmed, but blazing with determination. "Dad," she said, voice a little shaky. "If you're watching this, it means something happened to me. I need you to know the truth." She told me everything. How she'd found Gabriel behind that grocery store. How he'd told her bits and pieces about his father. How she'd connected his story to news reports about a man named Samson Morrison, who was being accused of running a trafficking ring. "Dad, he's worse than anyone knows," she said. "He has people everywhere. Cops, judges, politicians. I've been collecting proof, but I don't know who to trust. I was going to go to the FBI, but I think some of them might be compromised too." She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath. "Gabriel is just a little kid," she said. "He deserves a life. A real life. I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid you'd tell me to stay out of it, to be practical, to think about the risk. You always told me to avoid trouble. Remember, I know you meant well, but..." I couldn't ignore him. Then she said the words that burned a permanent scar into my memory. "If something happens to me, please protect Gabriel," she said. "He's so sweet, Dad. He reminds me of when I was little, and you used to read me stories. He deserves someone to tuck him in at night and tell him he's safe. If I can't do that, I need you to." She tried to smile, but her lip trembled. "I love you, Dad," she said. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I wanted to handle it myself to make you proud." The video ended. I sat there in the dark, tears streaming down my face. The weight of every bad decision, every missed sign, every moment I'd chosen work over family crashing down on me. She died trying to make me proud, and I hadn't even known what she was doing. So I made a decision. I was going to clean up the mess she died trying to fix, no matter what it took. What followed was a blur of FBI meetings, late-night calls, and dangerous choices. I connected with an agent named Lisa Rodriguez, who'd been chasing Morrison for years. She confirmed what Sandra had suspected. The accident that killed her was no accident. The driver had been paid to ram her car, and his body had later turned up in a river. Lisa laid it out for me. Morrison was still out there, still had loyal people, and he wanted Gabriel back for one simple reason. The boy was a witness. He'd seen faces, heard names, been in the house where children were kept like inventory. He wasn't just a scared kid to them. He was a liability. Then she gave me the choice that still keeps me up some nights. Option 1. Gabriel disappears into witness protection. New name, new life. Guarded by people who know how to handle this. I would probably never see him again. Option 2. We keep Gabriel close, pretend to play along with Morrison's demands, and use the meetup he wanted to set a trap and bring down his entire operation. If it were you, which would you pick? Safety or justice? I chose justice, but I also chose something else. I chose not to let Gabriel go. I told Lisa I would only agree if I stayed with him the entire time, and when it was all over, I wanted the chance to be his legal guardian. It sounded crazy even to me, but there it was. From that point on, everything accelerated. Gabriel helped us identify a red doorhouse near a church with a tall bell tower and a park, a place he remembered from his life with his father. The FBI had raided it before and found nothing when they went back with new eyes and a reason to search for hidden spaces. They found a basement with 12 children locked inside. Sandra's files. The audio recordings and photos she'd risked her life to collect turned out to be more than enough to jumpstart a full-scale federal takedown. Morrison's people got nervous, then desperate. They attacked my house. Again. We survived that second attack thanks to Lisa's team, but the message was clear. Morrison wasn't going to wait for a scheduled meet. He wanted his son, and he wanted him now. So we took the fight to him. The night of the raid on his main compound, I rode in a bulletproof FBI vehicle, with Gabrielle and Lisa watching through binoculars as agents moved into position. Gabriel sat between us, wearing a bulletproof vest that looked too heavy for his little frame. His hand never left mine. Lisa showed him photos from surveillance, grainy images of men going in and out of Morrison's place. Gabriel pointed out his father, 3 of his father's men, and 1 more person, a police officer who used to come to the house to pick up envelopes of cash. Corruption, right there on the screen. Lisa gave the order, and the night exploded into sirens' shouts, helicopters, and gunfire. The compound lit up, guards scrambling, some fighting, some dropping their weapons. For a moment, watching from that hill, I actually felt hope. Then, Lisa's radio crackled. "We've got a runner. Subject matching Morrison's description headed to the east wall. He's over. He's on your side." A heartbeat later, I heard shots. The front tires of our vehicle blew out. The truck lurched, glass shattered, and through the cracks I saw him. Samson Morrison, gun in hand, running toward us like a man who had nothing left to lose. "Give me my son!" he yelled, his voice wild and ragged. "Give him to me or I'll kill all of you." Inside the armored vehicle, Gabriel went rigid, then started to shake. "He's here," he whispered. "He's really here." Lisa shouted into her radio for backup, but we all knew it would take precious seconds to reach us, and Morrison was already close. He fired again, bullets ricocheting off the armored plating. I did something stupid, or brave, or both. I opened the door and stepped out. The air was cold against my face, the ground slick under my shoes. For a second, we just stared at each other. The man who'd destroyed so many lives, including my daughter's, and the man who'd failed to protect her. "You must be the father," he said, regarding me like an insect. "The rich idiot who thought money could solve everything." "You killed my daughter," I said quietly. He shrugged an ugly little roll of his shoulders. "She got in my way. She was trying to save children," I said, feeling my anger steady me instead of burning me out. "Kids you used like merchandise." He smiled, but his eyes were dead. "That's all they are," he said. "Supply and demand. You of all people should understand that, Mr. Cole. You move numbers. I move children. Same game, different product. You traffic human beings," I said. "You're not a businessman. You're a monster." He raised the gun, aiming at my chest. "Then why are we still talking?" he asked. Time stretched. His finger tightened on the trigger. Lisa was yelling from behind me. I heard Gabriel crying inside the vehicle. And then, from the darkness behind Morrison, a woman's voice cut through the chaos. "Samson," she called. "Stop." Morrison's head whipped around. For a moment, he went pale. "Rachel," he breathed. In that instant, my entire understanding of the story flipped upside down again. Because the woman who stepped into the light, thin, exhausted eyes ringed by shadows, was someone I had only ever heard about in past tense. Gabriel's mother. Rachel. The woman he thought was dead. That was the twist I never saw coming. The rest of that night could fill another entire story. But here's what matters. Rachel had escaped. She'd seen what Morrison was doing, taken. Gabriel tried to run and nearly died for it. Everyone, including Gabriel, thought she hadn't made it. For over a year, she'd been hiding in the shadows, recording everything she could. Deals, names, locations, even the conversation where Morrison ordered Sandra's death. She pulled out a small recorder and hit play. Morrison's own voice filled the air, cold and casual, talking about getting rid of the girl who keeps nosing around that boy and making it look like an accident. Hearing him talk about my daughter, like she was just some inconvenience he needed to erase. I won't even pretend that didn't make me want to kill him myself. With Rachel's evidence and Gabriel's identification, The FBI finally had enough to take Morrison down on the spot. He dropped his gun, sank to his knees, and for the first time I saw something like real fear on his face. Not of the law, not of prison, but of the look in his son's eyes as agents cuffed him and dragged him away. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? Bad guy in chains. Children rescued, family healing. Nice, clean ending. Yeah. No, life doesn't roll credits that neatly. After the dust settled, Rachel and Gabriel came to stay at my house while the FBI processed everything. The three of us started trying to figure out what family meant in a situation like this. We had dinners together, watched movies, tried to sleep through the nights without waking up screaming. Slowly, cautiously, we started to laugh again. For 3 days, it almost felt like we were safe. Then Lisa called. "We have a problem," she said, skipping any kind of intro. "Morrison is still communicating with people on the outside." We intercepted a coded message. "He's planning something for tomorrow night." The message mentioned you and Gabriel. I looked across the room at Gabriel, who was sitting at the table drawing with some colored pencils we'd bought him. Rachel, leaning over his shoulder to admire his work. That little bubble of peace we'd been living in popped just like that. From that moment on, my house turned from a fortress into a military base. More agents, more security, more cameras. Rachel suggested we run disappear, change our names. I wanted to. God, did I want to. But Lisa was right. We couldn't run forever, not from a man who'd built a network like Morrison's. The only way to end it was to burn down what was left of his empire. Then the messages started. Morrison somehow got a guard's phone and texted me from his cell. He wanted to make a deal. He claimed he had more information, names, locations, plans, that the FBI didn't know about yet. He said he'd give it all up, dismantle what was left of his own operation, in exchange for one thing. He wanted to see his son. One last time. Rachel's answer was an immediate, furious no. Lisa said it was dangerous, unnecessary, a risk she couldn't recommend. Every protective instinct in me wanted to agree with them, but then I thought about all the kids who still might be out there. Kids we hadn't found yet. Kids who needed those names and connections to be exposed. I thought about Gabriel waking up screaming at night, about Sandra crying on that video, about all the people who used systems like the one Morrison had built to hide behind money and influence. So I did something that a lot of people are probably going to think was wrong. I agreed. Under heavy guard, with more security than a head of state, we took Gabriel to see his father in a federal detention center. We sat behind thick glass phones pressed to our ears. Morrison looked smaller in that orange jumpsuit, but his eyes were still sharp, still dangerous. He apologized to Gabriel, to Rachel, to me. I don't know how much of it was real and how much of it was strategy. Maybe it was both. He told Gabriel he didn't deserve forgiveness, but he hoped that one day his son might be free of his shadow. Then he turned to Lisa and started talking. Names, cities, account numbers, dirty cops, judges on the take, offshore accounts funding operations across 6 states. He gave them everything. By the time he was done, Lisa's hands were shaking as she typed. Later that night, she called and told me what he'd given them had already led to 15 arrests, 23 rescued children, and the freezing of millions of dollars in assets. She said it was the biggest breakthrough they'd had in years. The threat to Gabriel is neutralized, she told me. With Morrison cooperating and his network dismantled, he's finally safe. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed after that call, staring at the wall, feeling this strange mix of relief and anger. The man who had my daughter killed had just helped save dozens of other kids. So here's the question I'm still wrestling with. Does that count for anything? That night, I found Gabriel sitting in Sandra's old room, flipping through a photo album of her childhood. He looked up at me and asked, Do you think she knows what we did? That we stopped my dad's bad people, I think she does, I said. And I think she's proud of you. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Jonathan, if my mom says it's okay, can I call you Dad? I'm not ashamed to admit I cried. Right there, sitting on the floor of my daughter's room with the boy she died protecting asking me if he could call me Dad, I cried. Yeah, I said, voice shaking, yeah, you can. He hugged me so tight it hurt. I love you, Dad, he whispered. I love you too, son, I said. And I meant every word. Rachel overheard that conversation. She stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face, then walked in and sat down next to us. I'm not threatened, she said softly. Gabriel has room in his heart for both of us. Honestly, I think Sandra would want this. The next day, the three of us went to Sandra's grave together. Gabriel placed fresh flowers on her stone and whispered, "Thank you for saving me. Thank you for being my friend. I promise I'll try to be good, and I'll try to be brave, so you'll be proud." I knelt beside him, hand on his shoulder. She is proud, I told him. Trust me. We walked back to the car, hand in hand. For a moment, as the sun broke through the clouds and lit up the cemetery, it felt like a real ending. Not a perfect one, but a hopeful one. A broken man, a broken woman, and a broken child, walking toward a future they were going to try to build together. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Lisa. Need to talk. Urgent. Morrison's lawyer just filed an appeal, claims new evidence. Call me ASAP. I looked in the rearview mirror at Gabriel, laughing at something his mom had said. His shoulders relaxed for the first time in what felt like forever. And that's when it hit me. We might never be completely safe. Not as long as there are people like Morrison in the world. Not as long as money can twist laws and buy favors. Not as long as children can be turned into commodities. But this time, I'm not facing it alone. I have Rachel. I have Gabriel. I have the memory of my daughter Sandra, who saw a starving boy in an alley and refused to look away. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. So now I'm turning this over to you. Do you think a man like Samson Morrison deserves any credit at all for helping the FBI tear down his own empire? Or do you think some crimes are so awful that nothing, no cooperation, no regret, should ever matter? If you were in my shoes, would you have agreed to let Gabriel see his father one last time to get that information? Or would you have refused and taken the risk that those kids might never be found? And what about Sandra? Would you have let your child get involved the way Shi Jiao did, knowing how dangerous it was? Or would you have told her to walk away and stay safe, even if it meant leaving a boy like Gabriel on the street? Is it fair that some people, usually the ones with the softest hearts, pay the highest price for doing the right thing? If this story hit you in any way, if it made you angry, or sad, or hopeful, or just made you think about what family and responsibility really mean, I want to hear from you. Do you think I made the right choices, or would you have done something completely different? Do you think Gabriel should ever visit his father in prison, or should that door stay shut forever? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Argue with me. Argue with each other. Share your own stories. If you've ever had to choose between safety and doing what you felt was right. Like this video. If you believe kids like Gabriel deserve second chances, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that one person really can make a difference. And subscribe if you want to hear more real stories that aren't neat, aren't simple, but are honest. Yeah, that happened. Now tell me, if it were you, what would you have done?